Well, hey everybody, my name is Josh. I'm a grateful believer, and I'm in recovery for chemical dependency and anger. Hey Josh. Before we get started, I'd like to pray real quick, so if you don't mind, bow your heads. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, thank you, Lord, for this wonderful night, Lord. Thank you for allowing each and every one of us to be here. Lord, thank you for your love, your mercy, and your grace. Thank you, Lord, for Lord, the many blessings that you have given me, Lord, through this journey, this walk that I've had, Lord, just surrounding me with people that love me, that love you, that want to do nothing but glorify you. Lord, I just pray and ask, Lord, you'll just speak through me, Lord, that, Lord, this really isn't my story, it's your story of your love, your mercy, and your grace. Thank you for all that you do. In your name, amen. Well, once again, my name is Josh. I'm a grateful believer in recovery for chemical dependency and anger. I was born and raised in a small country town called Malvern. Not very big. We had one stoplight and one gas station. My childhood, I would say, was pretty normal. You know, nothing crazy. You live in a small town, you do small town things. I had two loving parents, two older brothers. I was raised in church growing up. We went every Sunday and Wednesday, and me and my brothers both all went to Grace Bible Academy, which was actually a small private school within the church we attended. I went to school there from kindergarten until 6th grade, and then I was enrolled in Slocum High School. I would like to say I was like any normal kid, and then at the age of 15, I went to my first field party, and I got my first taste of beer. My brothers always talked about going, and always hearing them talk about it and how happy they were, and hearing about all the good times. I finally, started begging them to let me go, and they finally let me go. And I think that's pretty much where my journey began, was at that field party, taking my first taste of beer. It started out just every now and then, until I turned 16, and then I was able to drive. At that time, my best friend's parents let us drink and party at the house. As long as we stayed there, it didn't go off driving and do anything stupid. It turned into every weekend and partying. I was still going to church every Sunday, and I even accepted Jesus as my Lord and Savior when I was 16. It was at a youth conference in June, and I knew God was speaking to me, so I gave my life to Him that day. I was on fire for God, but I slowly started to slide back into my old ways of doing things like I used to. Mainly because I missed hanging out with my friends and all the fun that we used to have. The more I partied, the more I started to get the reputation of being the angry drunk, or the guy any of my friends could call on if they needed help in a fight. To be perfectly honest, I loved it. I loved the attention. I loved the thrill of the fights and just being able to do the things I wanted to. Can you hear me good? No?
Not good. That's better.
Better? Okay. Let me find my spot. You could say that I would take pride in knowing just how hard I could hit somebody, just how much fear I could put into somebody by just getting angry. I'd never really, until I started this journey, I never realized how much my anger played a role in the choices in my life. It played a huge role, and I know alcohol played a huge role in that, because that's what fueled my anger. But after I got tired of that, I wanted to try other things to try to get the same buzz that I got from drinking. So I tried weed, but man, did I enjoy it. The feeling I got from it was different than alcohol. I still drank some, but slowly the weed and alcohol started to not be enough for me. It just happened that my mom had been prescribed methadone, and I remember one day at football practice, I had gotten my earlobe almost ripped off and hurt my knee. I was a mama's boy, and she hated to see her little boy in pain, so she gave me one of her pain pills. That's when I found my drug of choice. I knew I could use my skills as a liar and manipulator to get one from her. Soon that one wasn't enough, so I started to get some from friends who had access to them. At this time, I didn't know you could buy them, and I used my reputation for being the angry fighter to get them from certain people just by threatening them. Around this time, my dad started to develop some health problems, so the doctors gave me Loratab for his pain, and I could get them from him. This went on for a few years, but then I slowed down and pretty much quit taking pills and was just drinking. Then in February of 2008, my dad passed away. He had been sick for several years. He had diabetes, heart problems, and neuropathy, and was in and out of the hospital for years. His final stay in the hospital is what kicked my addiction back into gear. He had been admitted into the hospital for his heart and had been in there for some time. And then one night, instead of going to see my dad, I chose to party with my friends and get high. I hadn't seen my dad in a few days because of my selfishness. I never got the chance to tell that man I loved him one final time. On February 5th, 2008, my dad went home to be with the Lord. His death tore me apart. I lost the man I looked up to most of my life and never got a chance to say goodbye or I love you before he passed. The worst part of it was that it was nobody's fault but my own. I didn't know how to handle this kind of guilt and pain. A buddy of mine had offered me a Percocet to cheer me up, and I was instantly hooked. They took those feelings of anger and sadness away so I didn't have to feel anything. I struggled for a long time with the guilt I felt for not seeing my dad before he passed, but the pills I took managed to drown out the emotions I felt. Eventually, I found a guy who would sell me the pills. I went on with my life. I actually started to go back to church. You know, it's crazy because even though all the sinful things I was doing, God had not forgotten about me and was still calling me. I started helping a friend of mine at a small country church where he was a youth pastor. I loved it. I loved seeing God work in these kids' lives, and I thought I was doing all right. Unfortunately, I was still taking pills, but only a couple here and there. I knew that God had me where he wanted me, but I was still using. In 2009, I had to have shoulder surgery, and to be honest, I didn't even really think about the pain pills involved with it. That changed quickly because my doctor gave me a ridiculous amount of pills. It's safe to say that I didn't feel much pain for the next 12 weeks, but then the refill stopped, and man, did I hate the feeling of coming down off those pills. So I set out to find some any way that I could find them. I ended up finding a few guys I could get them from. So for a while, as long as I had money, I had pills. Buying pills went on for a while, getting drugs from them and from my oldest brother, who by this time had started to develop health problems just like my dad. He had diabetes and neuropathy. For some of y'all who don't really know what neuropathy is, how my brother would describe it is a constant pain that feels like somebody's running razor blades up and down his legs 24/7. I can remember nights when my brother was hurting so bad that all I could do was hear him cry and scream, and just all night in his sleep. But me being the scum I was at this time, I would steal his pills, even if it was his last one. I didn't care. I just wanted my drug. I wanted to get high. You have to understand that he was in so much pain that just for him to get up and do what he had to do that day, he needed his medicine. He didn't take them to get high. He didn't take them to feel a buzz. He needed them just to function. But I made his life a living hell so many times. To this day, I struggle with the guilt for what I put him through. but I can talk about a little something positive. And that is the night that I met the love of my life. I was at a wedding of two friends of mine, Brandon and Ashley. Just a quick background here. These two had been trying to find me a girlfriend for some time. They kept telling me about this woman named Mara, and it just so happened she was at their wedding. So they introduced us. I won't lie, she looked beautiful, and I was interested in her for sure. It was a very slow-moving relationship, and I remember it all like it was yesterday. She had left her car at a friend's house and needed a ride somewhere. So she ended up calling me at like 3 o'clock in the morning, something like that. So I went to her house, picked her up, and took her to where she needed to go. But on my way home, I drove past Mount Gilead Baptist Church, which was right down the road from her house. And then I heard a voice in my head say, "You're going to marry that girl. She is the one for you." And that was God telling me.
What?
Huh? Okay. Well, if you don't know, I ended up marrying Mara, and I know it was God that spoke to me that night. As amazing as it was getting married to the love of my life, I still had this secret life I had hid from her. It was still using drugs. Now that I was married, I had two incomes coming to the house to feed my addiction. I would steal money whenever I had the chance to run and get pills. I had an act going on, coming up with any lie I needed to in order to get more money and more pills. I would steal from whoever I needed to be able to get those pills. I didn't care how much it would hurt them. I was just worried about myself. I was selfish, and I really, like before, was a piece of scum. I was stealing from the woman that meant everything to me, the woman I still love with all my heart, the woman who God had placed in my life, and at the time, future mother of my child. This went on for a couple years, and then in February of 2013, sorry, this is going to be a hard part. My mom was diagnosed with cancer. As you remember me saying, I was a mama's boy. And this news broke my heart. I didn't want to leave her side. I stayed the night at the hospital, probably 95% of the time she was there. Anytime somebody would offer to stay, I would just tell them no, that I would stay with her. I just couldn't believe my mom had cancer, and I couldn't stand seeing her in pain. But I was not about to make the same mistake I did with my dad. I was going to be by her side the whole time. The worst day of my life was on April 3rd, 2013. My mom had lost her fight with cancer. To be honest, I really don't remember much of that day. It was like my body and my mind completely shut down. I knew I didn't want to keep feeling this way, and the only way I knew at the time to deal with this much pain was to get a hold of some pills to dull the feelings. I remember feeling like someone had ripped my heart out and stomped on it. And I remember being mad at God for taking my mother. I still struggle with it to this day sometimes. Because she will never get to hold her grandson. She will never get to hold her grandson, Pierce. And he will never get to love on his ninny. I know that God doesn't make mistakes. However, and even though I will never fully understand it, I know she is in heaven and not hurting anymore. With all this happening, my addiction just grew stronger. Instead of looking to God for hope and strength, I chose drugs to get me through it. Fast forward a couple years to March 2015. Mara and I were blessed with an amazing gift from God, and that was our son Pierce. Despite this wonderful gift from God, my life would be turned upside down in just a few short months. I lost my job, and along with some of the great job opportunities, all my lies and deceits were about to catch up to me. Mara had found out about me stealing money, my lies about jobs I had taken, and my addiction to pills. I thought the loss of my mom was the worst thing that ever happened to me. It wasn't. Mara kicked me out of the house, and I had to go live with my oldest brother, Billy. This was a massive slap to the face to wake me up and out of my denial. This was the first time that I really realized I had a problem. I had reached my lowest. I was on the verge of losing everything. I was about to lose the love of my life and my son. I was completely lost without Mara. I had never realized until then just how much I needed her. I was going to do whatever I needed to keep her in my life. Honestly, this was the hardest few months of my life, not being able to see her and Pierce every day. But it was my wake-up call, and I thank God I answered it. I give God all the glory, because without Him, it wouldn't have been possible. But this journey was not over yet. On December 25th, 2015, my oldest brother, Billy, went home to be with the Lord also. And one of the Bible verses that I really looked to at this time was Deuteronomy 31:6. And it says, "Be strong and courageous. Do not fear or be in dread of them. For it is the Lord your God who goes with you. He will not leave you or forsake you." You know, I still, just like with Mom and my dad, I don't understand why God did these things in my life and why He took three people that I love so much. But I truly thank God for everything that happened to me. When I got kicked out of the house and I had to go live with my brother Billy, I was able to spend every day with him. Even though I used to steal from him all the time and left him with no pain medicine, he welcomed me into his home. I was able to confess to him that I took his pills, and him being the amazing brother he was, he forgave me and said, "Josh, I knew all along that it was you, but I love you and knew God would reach you one day, because God doesn't give up on His children." Even through all the pain of what happened between Mara and I wouldn't change certain things, because I was able to get closer both to my brothers during this time. Billy and Philip were my biggest support team. And now my relationship and my walk with God are stronger than they had ever before. Mara and I's marriage is stronger now with God at the center of it. I wouldn't change the things, because I know God makes no mistakes, and He has a purpose for everything. You hear people quote this verse all the time, and I think its meaning gets lost. But I believe it is completely true. I can do all things through Him who strengthens me. Philippians 4:13. I actually got a tattoo on my wrist several years ago that reads Solus Christus, which in Latin means through Christ alone. Now every day I can look down and that I'm living proof that through Christ alone, God gave me the strength to do anything. There is a couple of Bible verses that did help me get through this journey. Proverbs 16:9 says, "The heart of a man plans his way, but the Lord establishes his steps. Proverbs 3:5 is a huge one because my own understanding is what got me into this mess. And it reads, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not lean on your own understanding." God says it clear as day. Trust in him with all my heart. I still struggle with this day, just being stubborn. But God doesn't just want some of me, he wants all of me. Psalms 32:8 states, "I will instruct you and teach you in the way you should go. I will counsel you with my eye upon you." This verse says to me that God gives me the tools I need to live for him, build a relationship with him, and give my life fully to him. I got to start over now. But I give my life fully to him, and it's all in the Bible and prayer. Psalm 46:1-3 says, "God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore, we will not fear though the earth gives way. Through the mountains he moved into the heart of the sea. Through the waters roar and foam. Through the mountains tremble at its swelling." Mara and I actually started off at Mount Gilead's Celebrate Recovery back in 2014, helping them with children care. So I was already familiar with a little bit of, what went on with Celebrate Recovery. But in 2015 is when I actually started CR for my own recovery. I really grew close to a lot of people there. And then we heard that Mount Gilead Celebrate Recovery is going to be shut down. This made me nervous because I really enjoyed attending. I had dug my feet deep into my newfound recovery. I remember my Uncle Randy had taken me to CR at Harvest when I first started my recovery. So I told Mara that I wanted to try CR there because at that point, I only had 1 year clean and realized CR played a huge role in keeping me going. So we started coming here. And honestly, I would say it was probably the best decision I have ever made. I know now that it is right where God wanted me. When Mara and I got here, we didn't want to just sit and listen. We wanted to serve, to really get involved. One of the first things I did was look for a sponsor. And by this time, I had gotten to know TJ and felt he was a man God had put in my path. Before I knew it, I had several accountability partners as well. You hear all the time how important it is finding a sponsor and putting together an accountability team. And it's true. Without these people in my life, I don't know where I would be. I also had a great support group outside of CR, and several of them to this day still talk to me every day. Even through all the crappy things I've done, they never fully gave up on me. God is in control, and as of today, I have 3 years clean. And I give all that glory to God. I am serving at CR. I help out with the sound booth when needed. Me and Mar both are group leaders and e-coaches. Serving here at CR is one of the greatest things in my life. And so I encourage everyone to really get involved. Plant your feet into this program, and most importantly, build your relationship with God. Put Him first in your life above all else. I thank God for all that has happened in my life, the good and the bad, and I give Him all the glory. There is a gentleman in the Bible that a lot of people don't really hear about, and that's Stephen. And his story is in Acts. And I tell a lot of people this, that Stephen is one of the people that was on fire for God. He loved the Lord. He gave everything to God. He wasn't one of these prophets that went out and, preached to thousands of people. He helped serve food. He helped clean, things like that. Stuff that we talk about here at CR, doing serve work. You don't have to get in front of people and preach the gospel to serve God and to glorify Him. He did it by feeding people, by helping others. But it's almost like in our lives, the world wants to take advantage. I know with me, my weaknesses was my addiction, my anger, and the world tried its best to dig its hands into it and use that against me. And in Acts 7, it talks about Stephen before his death. In Acts 7, 55 and 56, but he, full of the Holy Spirit, gazed into heaven and saw the glory of God and Jesus standing at the right hand of God. And he said, "Behold, I see the heavens opened up and the Son of God standing at the right hand of God." And he cried that out, knowing that he was about to be cast out and killed. And any time that I start getting in my own feelings and stuff like that, I look at that as somebody who knew that his life was about to end, that he was hated by so many people, but he still gave God the glory. He still served the Lord to the very end. And I tell people, I hope and I pray that one day I know Jesus is standing for me, that He is proud of what I did, that I was a faithful servant, that I did what He needed. Celebrate Recovery is a great tool God has given us. It has helped save my marriage, has gotten me closer to God, which is what matters the most. Because without God, I would not be here. CR has grown to become more than just a recovery program for me. I have gained a new family. As Pete was saying earlier, you get to know people and they become family. May not be blood, but we're family. I have people in my life to help me out each and every day. My wife is probably one of the most important ones to me. Because I know through all the things that I did to her, she is the strongest woman I know. I would have gave up on me a long time ago, but she didn't give up on me. She knew what God had in store for us. And without her, I know that I would be lost, because God put her in my life for a reason. I would like to close with one final verse that helped me tremendously, and that was Philippians 1:6, and says, "God, who began the good work within you, will keep right on helping you grow in His grace until His task within you is finally finished." And to me, that what it means is that God's not done with me yet. Thank you for letting me share.